The stock market is falling. Meta alone lost $228 billion in market cap today, making it the 8th largest single day drop in history. Trump and Xi reached a deal, but investors aren't too happy about it, and a Hindenburg omen just triggered, and the S&P 500 fell 83% of the time after this.
President Trump met with President Xi of China yesterday, as everybody has been anticipating all week long. And Trump even said that he had a truly great meeting with President Xi and has described this as a 12 out of 10. Nonetheless, though, the market sold off and everybody is wondering why this happened. It looks like even though they struck a one-year truce, obviously, both countries still have a lot of differences, and they have a lot to still agree on overall. Now, there were some good cutbacks on tariffs, like the tariffs on fentanyl. China did announce a bunch of soybean purchases, but at the end of the day, the market did not see this as overly productive. And I think that one of the biggest things in my mind, Mike, is that this ended up becoming a buy the rumor, sell the news type of situation. And if we go to the SPY, we go to an hourly chart, over the past couple weeks, we've seen a lot of optimism with China. It's been driving the SPY higher. But now, as the actual event has happened, we're seeing the SPY pull back quite a bit, and investors are just not as pleased, I think, as the optimism would have said they would be.
Exactly. Like, Trump has really been speaking so positively about this potential deal. And when you look at the actual facts, it's just more of a truce that's going to expire 1 year from now. So we're basically in a situation where we're going to hope relations stay good for a year and hope there's no flare up in between that time. But Tom, it wasn't just this that brought a little bit of selling into the market today. It also hurts quite a bit that one of the largest companies in the world, Meta, got clobbered today. So what's going on there?
Yeah, their stock ended up dropping 10%, and they actually had really good earnings. They actually beat on revenue, they beat on EPS, but one of the biggest problems here is that everybody's looking at how much they're spending right now. They actually raised their capital expenditure targets, and that's one of the worst things hitting Meta's stock in the short term. Now again, Meta's being very aggressive. They're really going after AI spending, and Zuckerberg even backed this up. He said it's pretty clear, but I think we're seeing the returns in the core business. That's giving us a lot of confidence that we should be investing a lot more, and we want to make sure that we're not under-investing. And that makes a lot of sense, right? In this AI-driven market, you definitely don't want to be somebody under-investing in AI if it's going to be, the next big deal. And as we know, it already is a huge deal. So obviously that's huge for Meta, but Google and Microsoft even announced that they were raising their capital expenditure targets as well. Either way, though, Meta's stock got clobbered by this, Mike, and they ended up falling down 11.33%. And like you said in the intro, this is the 8th worst drop by market cap in history.
Yes, and also Meta is the 7th heaviest weighted company in the entire market. So when you have a big tech company like Meta dropping this much, it certainly has a big impact. And just 2 days ago, we saw the S&P 500 post its worst breath day in history for an up day. As we can see here, the S&P 500 closed up 0.23%, but there were only 104 stocks up compared to 398 stocks being down. And this goes to show that the market is being lifted up right now by a few very strong companies like Nvidia, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and of course Meta. So when these stocks start to weaken, things can get nasty very quickly. And one thing that just triggered is the Hindenburg omen. So basically, the past 30 times this has happened, the S&P 500 fell 83% of the time 2 months later. And for those of you who don't know, essentially the Hindenburg omen is like a technical analysis indicator that attempts to predict a stock market crash. You can see the requirements needed for this on the screen now, and we can see that we are currently in one now. It just triggered yesterday. Again, this doesn't mean the market's going to crash immediately, but again, the last 30 times this happened, we did see a crash 83% of the time 2 months later.
Yeah, that's pretty insane. I mean, to see that many negative readings, and it's not like that it's just 83% of the time and there's just two readings either. I mean, this is a handful of readings, and of course, I think the more data, the better, right? Even if we go to 1 month later, only being green 30% of the time is even another pretty bad situation. So I think this is a pretty big signal here. Now, a lot of people have been saying the market is very overextended and that we are in somewhat of a bubble, and I think that actually started to show up today. We saw Meta fall off the face of the earth. We saw a lot of these Mag 7 stocks pull back, and the SPY ultimately pulled back and fell through some pretty critical zones as well. It's just something to keep in mind, especially whenever you think about those few companies running the market.
Exactly. And when we look at the market right now, Tom, we did see a decent pullback today. What are the next key levels to keep on watch heading into tomorrow?
Yeah, we talked a lot this week about this huge support range around 682 to 683, and this is where the market really consolidated Monday morning whenever it first gapped up. Now today, we actually fell back through that zone and almost filled the gap back down to the 678.50 support. The SPY actually bounced right around 680, which is a nice whole dollar level, so we're going to be using that as support for tomorrow, given that it is the low of day from today. Now, we are hitting off of that pretty good in after hours, so I would definitely make that break. But even with that said, where it fills the gap at 678.50 will be another pretty critical support, along with 674 to 675 just underneath there. I think a lot of people might be looking for the SPY to try to make a comeback, and if that does happen, I would really like to see 685 break. If we look intraday today, there was a lot of hits very close to 685 to 685, honestly even 686. It was like a $1 range right there, and the SPY kept posting lower highs right around that range. So I would really like to see that re-break before we get too bullish tomorrow.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are going to be looking at that like 678.50 area for potential support. That is the resistance from when SPY gapped up on October 27. So definitely keep that in mind. A break through this level would be a worrying sign, and we are getting closer and closer to it. So should be interesting. But Tom, while we certainly had a lot of explosive movement over the past day, partially because of some of these big earnings, we have more on the schedule. Amazon reported after the bell today, and so far it's doing pretty good, which is great to see. They beat on earnings and revenue. What are you seeing with the data?
Yeah, they ended up coming in with EPS, which obviously beat expectations here at 1.95, which is really good. The expectation was 1.57, so they beat that by quite a bit. The revenue came in at 180.169 billion versus a 177.76 billion estimate, so good beats on that side of things. And then their EPS is up 36% year over year. The revenue's up 13% year over year. I'll take that data for sure. Year over year revenue beats are definitely usually pretty strong. But whenever I look at Amazon stock, it's having a really good reaction. It's not like Meta was yesterday, right? Where they beat on EPS, they beat on revenue, but the stock was tanking because capital expenditures and other things were scaring investors. In Amazon's case, they actually reported that their cloud computing unit grew faster than expected. So that's a good sign. And the stock is up quite a bit in after hours, almost getting to 250, which will be a big psychological level on the radar tomorrow.
Amazon's doing good for now, helping to combat some of this selling, but Apple's not looking too hot. Another one bites the dust, so this one's falling in after hours. Tom, what is going on here?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy with Apple. They did have strong iPhone 17 demand. They provided a strong forecast for their December quarter, so much so that Tim Cook even said, we expect total company revenue to grow by 10 to 12% year over year. We expect iPhone revenue to grow double digits year over year, and we expect that it would make the December quarter the best ever in the history of the company. I thought that was a pretty good statement. They beat on EPS, they beat on revenue expectations. The EPS was up 13% year over year. The revenue was up 8%. I guess those could have been a little bit higher, but nonetheless, they seem like pretty good numbers. Now, the stock did initially drop. As we can tell right now, though, it is making a comeback in after hours. So we might end up seeing Apple go green tomorrow. So far, it's looking pretty solid on the recovery.
Yeah, either way, it's going to be a volatile and exciting day. There should be a lot of great trading opportunities given all of the events going on right now. So, Tom, let's jump right into some setups and predictions. A stock that is definitely on my radar is UVXY, and it is to the upside. I know I mentioned this one in yesterday's video, and it did fine today. Nothing too crazy, but it's definitely still on my bullish radar. When the market starts to freak out, UVXY has the ability to do pretty well. Basically, when the market's crashing, volatility increases, and that positively impacts this ETF. We can see during past drawdowns for the market, this ETF has done especially well, and we are in the process of it starting to increase again, but we're not yet to the point where it's just like absolutely ripping to the upside. So UVXY is definitely on my bullish radar, but with a setup like this one, it's important that the market is actually falling. If the market is just ripping tomorrow, and let's say some great news comes out related to anything, and the bulls are buying up the market, it's hard to justify trying to short it in environments like that.
Yeah, UVXY can be really explosive whenever we do get a lot of volatility, though. Even if we go back to like that April pullback of this year. Now, this isn't even one of the biggest pullbacks ever, but from one of those lows to the highs, UVXY ended up popping around 200% if we go to like the end of February. So that was a pretty good move there by UVXY. I will keep it on the radar as it is at very low levels right now. With my first stock, I'm looking at Moderna. mRNA had an insane move today, and we'll even talk about it later because the Surge bot crushed it on Moderna today. But there were rumors of they were possibly going to get acquired with at least one drug maker. Now, again, these were rumors, but nonetheless, Moderna did end up flying to the upside a lot intraday, and they pushed up to around $29, closing up 14%. If they're able to break above $29.50, one of the next big resistances that I have in the short term, I will be watching this one for more good momentum tomorrow. Again, though, today was a big shift for Moderna. In the past or in the short term here, they have been kind of very flat and lagging, I would say. Very choppy within this lower range, but as we can tell now today, they're kind of testing the upper bounds of that range, and we might start to see a breakout through there.
Sounds good. Yeah, it did go crazy today. Another stock that is close on watch is SoFi, and it's to the downside. I know this is going to trigger a bunch of people, but yeah, basically SoFi, they've been crushing it over the past year. They have a lot of resistance overhead, and they have been weakening quite a bit around this $32 and $32.50 area. One thing that I really don't like with SoFi right now is we are starting to see it sell off in an exponential way. The pace of the sell-off is increasing. We could see today it fell by nearly 6%. Yesterday it fell by around 2.4%. And more important than anything else, when you just look at the intraday price action, you can really start to see some good selling pressure come in here. And I really like the risk reward playing it to the downside. This does not mean SoFi has to fall tomorrow, but I think it offers a good risk reward into like early and potentially even late next week. And I would like to see this stock get closer to that $27 area. In terms of like more immediate support, definitely keep a close eye on that $28.85 area. That was a low from Tuesday, and that is like the next key level.
Yeah, I really like that 28.85 area. That's a pretty big one. There was even some hits there last Friday as well, so I will be watching that very closely for a breakdown. But with my next setup, I'm looking at Palantir for a $200 rejection. Yesterday, I actually talked about $200 for a possible breakout, but with the market not getting an overwhelmingly positive move on the Trump-Xi meeting, Palantir did end up rejecting today, closing down 2.14%. Now it is trying to come back a little bit here in after hours, but for the most part, I would love for it to break this 194 support from the past couple trading days. It did try to bounce there a little bit this morning, and then in after hours, that's pretty much where the low was once again. Now, if we go to the actual Bookmap and we look at where the big buy walls are in the short term, 195 and 194 are pretty much all that are in play. A little bit came in at 195.50 around the middle of the day as well, but I really would like to see a break through both of those levels and 194 ultimately break, and we can just see how critical of a sell wall $200 is. So, obviously if this stock reverses and ends up breaking through 200, it's a no play tomorrow, right? I want to really see that support range break where those buy walls are.
Sounds good. All right, well, let's jump right into today's momentum plays then. And with the first one, we have Teladoc, ticker symbol TDOC, to the upside.
Yeah, actually moving up with their earnings, closed up 6.2%. If they break out above $9.02, watch for a continuation.
With the next one, we have D-Wave Quantum, ticker symbol QBTS, also to the upside.
I love the consistency of the price action with this one today, even into market close. If it breaks out through 36.80, then watch it to the upside as well.
And then with the last one, we have Boeing, ticker symbol BA, to the downside.
Another bad day for them following their earnings actually on Wednesday, and they're straddling a key $200 support. So if they break through 200, watch them to the downside.
All right, so we have these three tickers on the radar for potential continuations if and only if they break through the levels listed. As always, focus on making smart, long-term oriented trading decisions. If you need help with that, check out the Key Lessons channel in the Stocked Up Discord. But with that being said, Tom, let's jump right into today's $407,000 big money trade. And this one is interesting. We are looking at ticker symbol IEF. Today, the trader here bought the 95 strike put options that expire on January 16th of 2026. For those of you who don't know, IEF is an ETF that follows 7 to 10 year treasury bonds. Basically, we started to see bonds sell off hard ever since Powell spoke yesterday, warning everyone that the Fed is divided and that a December rate cut is not guaranteed. Bond investors did not like this at all. Basically, looking at this trade here, the trader here is betting on IEF falling. It's a 95 strike puts for January 16th of 2026. And while this trade is a little bit riskier than normal because these put options are far out of the money, that also, of course, comes with higher reward potential. What I really like about this setup specifically is that implied volatility is really low, which makes these put options relatively cheap. Of course, with a high risk, high reward setup, it has to be sized accordingly, but I am excited to see how this ends up playing out.
Yeah, if we do end up seeing a larger pullback here out of bonds, and, of course, with Powell's statements yesterday, that was definitely not the best sign for them. This would be a great play to take advantage of that for the next few months. As we know, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. Powell's not quite sure what they're going to be doing at the next FOMC meeting even. There's all these dissenters. There was obviously multiple dissents in the FOMC whenever they were voting. So there's a lot up in the air on that side of things. But, Mike, this is a pretty insane setup. And 95 is far away, but as we can tell, IEF has been trending up quite well. And if we even just go like from September up until this point, like where we are now, going to September 2nd, again, it's been only a couple months, right? And we're pretty much up around 1.8% from that point. So again, there's enough time on this. If we do end up falling down for about a month or two, I think 95 is pretty attainable. And at the end of the day, there is always some added risk here. It's not the largest big money trade ever with 407,000, but I like how you pointed out the low IV. And if this starts falling, the IV will probably pick up quite a bit, and obviously that'll help out on options in a pretty awesome way.
Definitely. So either way, let's keep it close on watch. And let's also give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Mama Cass in the Stocked Up Discord, who had some great profits today with Meta. So huge shout out to you. It's great to see posts like this one. But if you guys are into short-term trading, definitely check out the link down below, as our surge bot hit it out of the park today with some Moderna call options that popped up by 1,289%. That was awesome to see. There was also some great action with the Boeing put options that popped up by 293%, the Verizon put options that popped up by 230%, the MSTR put options that popped up by 119%. The list goes on and on. Of course, there were a handful of duds sprinkled in there as well, but yeah, those nearly 1,300% Moderna call options today definitely stole the show. Check out that first link in the description and the comments down below to get full access to our army of custom trading bots, daily big money plays, weekly live events, custom commands, and basically everything you could need for short-term trading. Coupon code Big Money will let you save quite a bit. So definitely check that out. But we are set for a very exciting day in the market tomorrow. We're starting to see volatility increase. We'll have these big tech stocks earnings continuations. And yeah, there's a lot of exciting things happening in the market right now. So thank you all so much for watching. And let's crush it in the market tomorrow.